Hello and welcome to the Tesla Tips and Tricks podcast. This is Rod Stuckey. Joined with me today, my co-host Tori Hornsby. Tori, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be here. We're going to be covering today 5 of the more interesting posts. We last week we averaged about 44 posts a day, so around 310 posts for the week, and we're going to be jumping into some of the ones that were a little bit more interesting than others. But before we do that, Tori, tell us a little bit for our new listeners and watchers, a little bit about the Tesla Tips and Tricks community.
Sure. We refer to it as the T3 community. It is the largest Tesla tips oriented Facebook group in the world. We're getting closer to 278,000 members, and we're dedicated to providing guidance and insights, real world practical advice for current. And we have a lot of prospective Tesla owners. So we're not only dedicated to current owners. We're excited to have a large percentage of our new members come in who are just wanting to do research before they buy. And we love that. We're big fans of that. And we work hard in this group to fight spammers, remove inappropriate content as things get too political, to remove those posts and comments. And we just want to ensure a polite, courteous, and fun community for Tesla enthusiasts. And, I also wanted to mention that we're getting a lot of good feedback about our T3 auctions. These are free for sellers to list their Teslas on our T3 auctions. And it's the easiest way to sell your Tesla, hands down. And if you're interested, if you're in the market,
the funnest way to buy a used Tesla, by the way, as well.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's fun to get on there and bid and to partake. And hey, even if you're not in the market and you want to check it out and partake and comment, we invite you to do so on all of our T3 auctions. But if you are in the market to sell and you want to list your car, you can get an estimated value by visiting the Sell My Tesla page on our site, which is teslatipsandtricks.com. Just up in the navigation, click on Sell My Tesla, click on Get an Estimated Value, and you're not locked into that. We can set a fair reserve price, and you can get more than that as the price continues to get bid on and goes up, but that'll give you an idea of an estimated range for value.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Well, great. Well, thanks for that overview of the T3 community, Tori. And without further ado, we're going to jump into some of these highly engaged posts. We're going to start with Justin, who said, getting my 2022 Model 3 with 5,000 miles on Thursday. It's my first EV. What's the best advice you would give to a first-time Tesla owner?
Yeah, we loved this question, and I've got my screen shared for those who are listening on a podcast. We'll be reading some comments so you don't have to see them. But yeah, Justin, this was probably my favorite question of the grouping here. It's, what advice would you give to a first-time Tesla owner? And the top comment here from Christian, he goes through a list of 7. He says, get used to planning your life around your battery range. He's a newer Tesla owner as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Number 2, don't trust and only rely on the range estimate that replaces the battery gauge. Set your battery to show a percentage so that you're not relying on specific amount of miles. And then the second part of, or 2A is what he calls it. He says, get used to reading the energy usage app. And that's an interesting tip. I love it because it'll show you what is using your battery. And a lot of times it's not the motors that's using your battery, it's other things that you have active, and you can increase your range by shutting those things down. And I'll talk more about that in a second. Number 3, get a home charger if you can. Learn where the superchargers are in your area if you haven't already. Number 4, drive defensively. That's always a good a good tip, is just drive defensively. 5, accept battery degradation. It's a fact. Your range will go down. It's typically 1% to 2% a year. So that sounds like a lot, but you're talking about, if you have a 300-mile range, 1% is 3 miles, 3 to 6 miles, 1 to 2%. So no big deal there, but it is a fact of life. Number 6, Don't ignore issues. If your car does anything weird or throws up any warnings, set up a service immediately. And 7, just enjoy your car and welcome to the fold is what he says. So we do welcome all of our new drivers there. On the battery percentage, I love what Sam said. He's one of our moderators. He says, I've been driving a Tesla since July of 2016. I stopped worrying about range by September 2016. Even though superchargers were nowhere near as prevalent as they are now. Basically, he says, I don't know why you would run your battery on range. He sets it up as a percentage so that you're not relying on a specific number of miles. I totally agree with this comment. I don't run on range. I run on percentage. And
Yeah,
I've
that's what I
never
do.
had range anxiety. What's that?
Yep. That's what I do as well. Yeah.
Yep. Other people have just mentioned a lot of home charging. And I think that that's big because you do want to follow the ABC of always be charging. And really, it's not that you're always charging, you're always connected. That might even be a better C word for the ABC, always be connected to your charger. Because even if you set it to 50, 60, 70% just ongoing, keeping your battery charged in or plugged in and ready to charge in that mid range of 50 to 70% is going to increase the longevity of your battery by far. And you're always going to be good to go. So I used to think at first when I had a Tesla that I was supposed to plug it in and charge when it was below 20%. And that's just not true. Now that I always leave it connected, it's like I go to the gas station every day. I go out to my car and it's always where I expect it to be.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something on that, Rod?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the opposite of range anxiety that you don't think about. That's like, I don't know. That's a full tank of gas that didn't cost me any time or significant expense. And every day when I go out to my garage, it's a joy and elation instead of range anxiety. So it is just part of that is the learning curve, like Sam was saying, and getting used to it.
Yep. And Constance says, don't be afraid to ask questions on here. And I love that because that's a good tip. Just, you don't know everything. In addition to that, I don't know where this comment was, but it was, don't be afraid to be what we call a clicker. And we call being a clicker of just go in there, tap, change settings, see what it does. Don't be scared to mess something up. And even if you make adjustments to your settings and you're something you don't like and you don't know what you did, it's very easy on the service page to set it to all factory defaults again, like a computer. And it's a simple process. And then you can start over again. So you're not going to mess anything up. Have fun. And then probably my favorite comment here is from Rich. He says his biggest tip is step really hard on the accelerator.
Because it feels so good.
Yep. Scott says get front mud guards and rear mud guards, of course, to protect the paint. And I love his tip here of getting the console tray. I have a Model X and there's open space under my seat. And I got these trays that slide and they stay in place and they slide under the driver's seat and the passenger seat. The storage that I have, I went from feeling like I didn't have enough storage to having an abundance of storage. Like I've got so much storage in my Model X now. And don't forget about your frunk. I never use my frunk because that's where the engine always was.
Right.
I forget that it's there. Don't forget about your frunk. Use it.
Yes, you're right. Something about the frunk can be you can easily forget about the frunk. I don't know what it is. So, and Tori, just to hitch my wagon to your point about being a clicker, because I'm not as good of a clicker as you are. I would add a little bit of patience and in the app something that's fun. If you go into your app and you go under service, there's actually video guides under the service section, and it's kind of fun to watch the video guides. Also on the Tesla Tips and Tricks website, we've kind of got videos, how-to videos that are in order of similar order of your app laid out. And then a funny thing about I love the Tesla Tips and Tricks group and staying engaged with that. This is a true story. You can't make this up. I'm on the phone with Tori yesterday morning, leaving my neighborhood, and I said, dude, every time I go by this one spot in my neighborhood, my mirrors fold in and they immediately fold back out. Am I losing my mind here? And he goes, oh my gosh, we had a post about that this morning. And
Minutes
so
before you asked me.
yeah, that was wild. And so I went last night and I found that post and it clicked. I had pulled over there in my neighborhood one time and piddled with some stuff. And apparently I had hit save on a mirror adjustment that I was doing there. So every time I go by there, the mirrors would close in, they would come back open. And so a little bit of patience and watching videos and staying in tune with the T3 group goes a long way.
Yep. Two more things here, just real quick. Carolyn says, don't forget about the toy box. Have fun with that. And there's theater mode where when you're supercharging or waiting on your significant other while they're shopping, there's just a lot of fun things to do in a Tesla while you're waiting for someone and sitting in park. Of course, there's Santa mode. There's all these other Easter eggs. But lastly, in terms of range, I would say the biggest tip, my range, it's such a difference maker. Whenever I turned off the auto summons, I didn't realize that, man, that uses 5, 6, 7% of your battery per day. It's crazy because your car is always staying ready to be connected and ready for auto summons. And so I'll turn it on from time to time when you're parking. If you know you're going to use it before you go into a store, turn it on, but otherwise leave it off. At least that's my recommendation. I would say one of my big tips. And then I turn off the Sentry mode at my house because I have cameras
on the monitor, not in the app, right?
Not in the app. You have to do this in the car. Both of these. Sentry mode off at home, and that one you might be able to do from the app. But the auto summons you have to do from the car. And man, I'll tell you, it's completely different. I'm an ABC guy, always be connected or always be charging, but I didn't charge my car last night. And when I got out of my car yesterday, it was at 60%. And when I got in my car to go and meet someone for lunch, so it was well over 12 hours later, I was at 60%. And in my Model X, that could have been a 5% difference in the past, maybe 6. I left it at 60. It's down to 55, and I didn't do anything. It's just sitting here. So Sentry mode off at home because I have cameras and I don't need it. And auto summons off. Two huge tips for your battery life.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on from Justin, and those some great tips for him being a first-time owner. Let's go here to Raphael. I need help driving on my way to work, and this just appeared on my screen. What the heck? I'm scheduling the service, but it says next availability is in 12 days. I'm in North Texas driving a 2023 Model Y long range. Tori, take us through what's on his screen for those who are just listening in their cars driving.
Yeah, it says vehicle may not restart. Service is required. Vehicle may not restart. Service is required.
And it's just like a little pop-up warning triangle kind of a deal.
And so when you see this, it is almost always your 12-volt battery. A lot of people don't understand that the high voltage battery, it powers your air compressor, your heater, it powers your motors and a lot of stuff like that. But you have a separate battery that's typically a 12-volt battery that is powering the car. And the high voltage battery does have a way to charge that battery, but whenever it's going bad, the door locks and getting in your car and starting the car and the computer monitor, it'll just stop working and your car is dead, even though the HV, the high voltage battery, is fine. This message of vehicle may not restart, service is required, is typically a sign that your 12-volt battery has gone bad. Now, in some of the newer cars, including his 2023 Model Y, this is actually a 16-volt battery. It doesn't change anything. It's still the same. It's just operating on 16 volts. It doesn't matter. So if somebody refers to your battery as the 12-volt battery, it means the battery in your car that's not the high voltage battery.
It's basically would it be safe to say that's similar to in your ICE vehicle, the battery that you're
Right.
familiar with that's used to start the car, and basically it's like uh,
Right.
house battery versus a coach battery in a motorhome. In a motorhome, you've got one set of batteries runs the inside of the car, and then you got a chassis battery that runs so same kind of concept. You're not your big bad scary battery,
Mhm.
the other battery.
Yeah, and it's not really expensive to replace either. It's
That's
pretty
what I was going to
simple.
ask. I've never replaced one. Are they what, 100 bucks, $200 or something?
Yeah, the batteries themselves are within maybe a couple of $100, and then replacing them, it's not quite as simple as an ICE vehicle because in an ICE vehicle, you open your hood, the battery's right there. It's pretty
Uh-huh.
simple. It is a simple process in a Tesla. It's in the frunk area, but you have to remove the weather stripping, which is no big deal, unbolt the plastic carrier or the storage for the frunk, and now you can access your battery. So it's not a huge deal. Your average person that's that can do things on cars, change your own oil. If you can change your own oil, and if you can on an ICE vehicle and do brakes, you can change this yourself. If not, take it to Tesla. And I would say that that's one of my favorite quotes here is by Tina. And she said she had the same thing. But instead of scheduling the service, she just walked into her local Tesla service center, and they took her in ASAP, gave her a loaner, and she didn't have to wait 12 days. So just go in and try. It never hurts because you can get stranded. And if your car is under warranty, on a side note, and it doesn't start, Tesla will cover the pickup and the towing to the shop. Or sometimes they still have a lot of mobile mechanics, and they'll send somebody out to where you are to replace it. So if you're driving and have the time and you're near a service center, go in, stop and ask and say, here's what it's doing. I'm scared it's going to stop working. They'll probably give you a loaner and jump on it as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They have Tesla dealer, their dealer network, they do a really good job of making you feel like you can't just show up and you have to always have an appointment. You have to always use the app, and like you can't even call them. It's like hard to even find their phone number to call them. But if you show up and you're in a Tesla and you got uh, a a body there, and for them to send you on the way, knowing that you could get stranded, there's probably some liability there that they don't want to have to deal with. So just
And
show up.
right, just show up. And you mentioned a body, and for those who, just to be sure we clarify that there's a body. Uh, we Rod
A
and I have
human
we've read
being.
over 300 books. We study sales training and a lot of things. And whenever you're reaching out to somebody, we always say the easiest thing to ignore is an email or an ad on social media on Google. The second hardest thing to ignore is a phone call, but the hardest thing in the world to ignore is a body. And so when you show up and you're standing in front of somebody, that you can't ignore that. So
Kind of
that's what he
hard.
meant by, I just wanted to explain that when you said, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a body. It's like, well, hold on, wait, there's a body? What is
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else on Raphael before we move on?
no, that's it.
All right. Number 3 here is from Lena. Okay. I'm a little freaked out. I'm about to take a road trip in my 2025 Model 3 long range rear wheel drive from Fort Myers, Florida to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, then to Charleston. Uh, the car GPS says I could get as low as 8%. Is that even safe? What happens if I can't make it to a charger on time? I'm a bit nervous and worried. This is my first Tesla and sounds like her first road trip in her Tesla.
Yeah. Uh, good question. I'll answer immediately. 8%, totally safe, no problem. Don't worry about it. But going through some comments here, I just finished a trip from Orlando to Nashville with my Tesla, and it was incredible. Don't worry, enjoy the trip. If you have any range anxiety during the trip, just choose a charger that's a bit closer on your route to where it will get there around 15% or so if you're scared of 8%. then charge from that back up to 80% or whatever the car suggests, and then a little more to make you feel comfortable and continue on your way. We stopped every 2 hours or so, stretched the legs, restroom break, grabbed a snack, and continued on our way 20 minutes later. Using FSD the entire trip made the experience a 10 out of 10. I've made this same trip in several different vehicles over the years, and I will never not do it in a Tesla now. And Rob, we talk about this in our morning meetings, and a lot of times when we talk, and I have my Model X in the service center, and they gave me a Model Y, and I loved it. It was great. I love the Model Ys, but getting back in my car with my settings on the Model X, I don't think that even my wife doesn't understand how much I love Teslas. Well, she does understand. She doesn't understand maybe the why because she doesn't drive them as much, but I feel the same. It's a 10 out of 10 experience. I love driving them. I'm an enthusiast, obviously. And on longer trips, my wife is always going to want to take an ICE car. And we're always going to have that debate of like, but I get FSD and we get this, and there's theater mode when you go shopping, and there's this, and we got the toy box, and we got let's just take the Tesla. I love it.
I thought that I would always be road tripping in my wife's ICE vehicle until I experienced FSD, and there's no way I'm road tripping in her Cadillac. We're going in my Tesla because FSD is too fun, and it sounds like Lena's doing the right thing of planning this thing out. So it's pretty reliable when you properly map it out with the navigation.
Yep. A couple of more comments here. Rick says, I drove my 2021 Model 3 to California twice with no problems. We don't really know the perspective of Rick. We just have to assume that that's a far ways away. I mean, where are you, man?
From New York, could have been from Florida, could have been from
Washington. Yeah. So who knows? Oregon. So anyway, but assuming it's a long way, and that's what you see most of these comments of. Russell says, just finished a drive from Miami to Greenville, South Carolina. That's a long drive. That's a long drive.
Yes,
and says, I usually don't let mine get that low just from a comfort level. I try to stay above 10% most of the time. I arrive with more power than what the car estimates, but I usually just stay at the charger a little longer if I'm not comfortable with the lower percentage that I'll be arriving with. When you're charging, it'll show you arrival power at your next stop. You can just keep charging to when you feel it's comfortable. After a few trips, it just gets to be second nature. No, Joe says no, 8% is not too low. There were other people saying I've arrived at 1%, at 3%. Now, actually here, Devontae says mine's got as low as 3% as I was pulling into a charging station, LOL. I've pulled into my house at 3%. I've also pulled into a charging station at 1%. Like I have had range anxiety once in my life, and it was local. I wasn't even on a trip. I looked down and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to a supercharger. So sometimes whenever you get so used to it, it's like running out of gas, basically the same thing. You cannot look down and go, oh my gosh, I'm almost out of gas. That's what happened with me with battery. And I pulled in with it. I thought it was going to go to 0%. As I was pulling in, it was close. So last one here, Blake says, just don't speed. So if you're worried about range, or if you find yourself in traffic and you're concerned, you can reduce the climate control. So not as hot or not as cold. Turn off auto summons in the car. Turn off your Sentry mode. You could while you're driving. I don't recommend that. It doesn't use much battery power. You're talking 1 to 2% per day, but you could turn that off. There's also, if you go into the control screen, I believe, or it could be pedals and whatever the pedals one is. The word's escaping me, but there's range mode. And so you can turn it on range mode. And basically what it does is it lowers the usage of climate control and everything else to give you more range. But speed kills, your tire pressure, all of that kind of stuff. Just make sure that you're ready to go and don't speed too much.
Yeah, Lena, enjoy your trip. It'll be fine. So moving on to Emmanuel, tips for battery preserving in this cold weather. I live in New Jersey and it's about 18 degrees this morning.
Yep. The very first comment here is from Ed, and he says, try to use the seat warmers more than the cabin heater. And depending on which cabin heater you have, they're pretty power hungry. So what Ed is saying here is it would be better for you to let it be 60 degrees in your car, wear a jacket and turn on the seat heaters than it would be to make it 80 in your car and not use the seat warmers. So the cabin heater is more power hungry than the seat warmers. David mentioned stay plugged in at home, and that's a good tip. And what I would say is in some of the other comments here that I was trying to look through and find it, but charge a little bit more than what you are expecting if you're going to be taking a little bit of a trip that day. Maybe go 5% higher, and set the schedule of when you're going to leave, and turn the car on to full blast. Turn on all the seat heaters before you leave, and while you're plugged in at home, let the car warm itself up, put it on full defrost, high temp, and you're plugged in so you can draw some power from the house and charging the battery while you're using it to do all of the preconditioning. Because if you just go out and leave without scheduling it or doing any of the preconditioning, then the battery is freezing cold and it has to warm itself up knowing that you might need this power. And, when the battery's cold, the regen doesn't work. And so it isn't going to be regenerating power whenever you slow down. And that's why you want to warm it up before you leave while you're plugged in. Help it to use at least some of the house power going through the battery and charging the battery while it's consuming with all of the preconditioning stuff. Getting that battery warm and toasty before you leave will save you using that range or that battery power and impacting range after you leave.
Yep. And you can't leave out Amelia, who said there's a picture of her deck that's covered in snow. It says, I live in North Carolina. Your weather is here. Please drive down and get it. Make sure you precondition to get the best range. Now, y'all, this is the debate we get into in the world of moderating this group is we want all comments to be polite and courteous, and we want them to bring value. And a lot of times when there's memes and gifts, there gets to be, it just gets out of hand. But sometimes you just gotta let it ride. And I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, and here's something that's funny and this is something that we're looking to incorporate onto our T3 auctions and some of our T3 posts. We'll probably have a page dedicated to this, but the weather in January and February and December, range goes down in Teslas in the cold. So the average range that you get on your Tesla, it goes down everywhere. And then in the summer months, the warmer it is outside, this seems contradictory, at least, because I know like growing up, I remember my dad would put batteries in the refrigerator. Not necessary. I still don't like now that I have an engineering mind, as you know, Rod. And so when I look into that, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't do anything. In fact, it hurts it because the colder these batteries are, typically the lower the performance is. And so,
well, if it was over, depending on the circumstances, if it had just been, if it had been in use and was on the verge of getting too hot, that would be a smart thing to do.
Well, no, I mean just storage. Like he would store new batteries in there. I don't know why.
Oh, and, Gary.
Yeah, Gary, he was good. He was always right too about pretty much everything. But that one was some kind of old wives' tale he heard that he followed, and it was not a thing. But in the summer months you get more range, in the winter months you get less range. So you have to pay attention to things that are killing your range in the winter. So this is a good question.
Yep, it is. And it's the group is always blowing up. So if you want more information and you want to search preserving your battery in cold weather or range in cold weather, there's a lot of good information on the group. So Last one of the of this session from Evan. Anyone know of how long the tax incentive will be available now that the new administration has changed things?
Well, one of uh, the the top comment that you can see here is by this really handsome looking fella named Tory Hornsby. Oh wait, that's me. Uh, he said Trump said he's removing the so-called EV mandate. He hasn't given any timeline on the tax credit. And so when I posted this, that was very true. Well, we've dug into this a little bit more, and there's a myriad of comments on this. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong, and it what we have found out is that what was the so-called mandate was that the all of the OEMs and new vehicle production needed to be a certain percentage by the year 2032. And ideally 100% is where they were headed. And we're not really in favor of that.
It was the order set a goal for half of all new vehicles sold in the United States to be electric by 2030, and then they bumped it to 2032. So some people called it a target. There were some comments in here. It wasn't a mandate, it was a target, it was a goal, it was an incentive. It was golden handcuffs, but that it was all new vehicle sales needed to be 50%. And then you had some states like California who wanted to be at 100%.
Yeah.
By 2035. So you had federal stuff, and then you have some state stuff overlapping as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you chimed in on that, because you're right. That's what it was. It was 2030. They moved it to 2032, 50% of all new. So that one didn't impact any of us yet, really. It impacted the OEMs and their plans for the future, which was a little bit unfair because, if the market doesn't want to be 50% electric, then they shouldn't go 50% electric. And here we have this really cool industry that's growing at a healthy rate in the electric vehicle world, and just let it continue to grow and let people get more comfortable with it. I talk to people all the time who were anti-EV, and I couldn't stand in charging it, and I just don't understand that. And after talking with them in a couple of minute conversation, they kind of switch and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Oh, wow. No, maybe I could buy a Tesla sometime. So if we'll just let this industry grow without the, big brother coming in and forcing OEMs to do things that maybe the market isn't ready for. And that's why I say, I don't think most people are in favor of the government making OEMs do that. I know some people are, and that's okay too. But so that was the so-called mandate. And there's confusion on that versus the tax incentive, or what people call the tax credit. And
Right.
by the government calls that the clean vehicle credit. So
Yep.
the tax credit by name from the IRS is clean vehicle credit, or for a used vehicle, it's a used clean vehicle credit. And that
And
is
just
typically referred to. Yeah, go ahead.
a quick point on that that's made this even more attractive is January 1st of 2024. They allowed, if you purchase through an authorized dealer, that you could claim that $7,500 credit for new and $4,000 credit for used at the point of sale as a discount. So you didn't have to go and wait till you do your tax returns and get a refund on your tax return. It was a literal real money discount right off of your bill of sale. And so that has really made and makes this question really relevant too, is this is real money right at the point of purchase.
Yep. And now, to be clear on that, it's a requirement. Not only do you get the money up front by purchasing through a dealer, thou shalt purchase through a dealer, or thou shalt not get the tax credit. You have to. If you purchase from an individual and you go later and try to file it on your taxes, it's rejected. You can't do it. You must purchase from an authorized dealer, new or used, of course. So the tax incentive, the used clean vehicle tax credit and the clean vehicle tax credit, is currently in the tax code. and approved through 2032. So we theoretically have 7 more years. Now, the mandate, or it wasn't a mandate, but what people called the mandate, that can be changed by executive order. And that's what the current administration was doing away with. This tax credit that's written into the tax code, it can't be done away with the stroke of a pen from the president. Now, surely he has sway on this kind of stuff, but this would have to go through our normal laws, and Congress would have to pass it. It'd have to be signed into law to be a bigger change, and it would take some time. This isn't something where we're going to wake up one night and go, "Oh, there's no more tax credit. There's no more clean vehicle credit." It will have to be passed into law and go through all the proper channels, but it is approved through 2032. And I don't see why they would jump to change that, given the shape of the vehicle market right now, because it would actually impact the used EV market and the new OEM. Because with that so-called mandate, OEMs have gone more electric. And a big part of why you would choose to buy one is a $7,500 free down payment from Uncle Sam. So the government, the last administration put it into effect to where the golden handcuffs, you have to do this. And so they started down that path. Now they don't have to, but they've already began the tooling and the infrastructure to go that direction. And they've built more EVs than what maybe the market has demand for. So the $7,500 new credit, the $4,000 used credit, I feel is very important. Do you agree with that, Rod?
Yeah, there's a lot of irony here. And by the way, a side note, again, talking about the fun of moderating this group, one of the things we try to do is to keep it not being political. And imagine trying to keep this.
Oh my gosh.
The comments, I think there's 115 comments on this one. But a little bit of the irony is, Elon has gotten involved in running this Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. And so it'll be real interesting. This is real money. I mean, this is real money from the government. $7,500 for new, $4,000 for used. Is this efficient for the government? Does Elon get to choose? I don't know. I do. Having been in the automotive industry for so many years, and before that, I even watched this in the motorcycle industry. I was in the motorcycle industry in the 90s, and everything was 2-stroke. And the government said, "Hey, you're going 4-stroke." And we said, "No, we're not." And well, guess what? We ended up going 4-stroke in the motorcycle business because that's what the government said we were going to do. And a similar basis, it had, clean air emission motives behind it. And so that's what happened. And so now if you look, and maybe you don't like the word mandate, you want to use a target or whatever, but the pressure, the incentives from the government making this target by 2032 forced all of the legacy manufacturers to go heavy into research and development and infrastructure on electric vehicles to the tune of billions of dollars. And so when you look at the sales of electric vehicles, because the market here in the United States in particular, because we're so spread out, the market said, "Hey, we're not ready for all these electric vehicles." And the end result has created some serious financial challenges for the legacy manufacturers here in the States. And there's a lot of them that are in financial trouble, and they have balance sheets that aren't healthy. And so when you look at the decision that, we had an automotive industry bailout, if you remember General Motors back in the 08, 09 recession that we went through. So I could see Trump I could see Trump and Elon actually facing, a similar situation to where they say, "Hey, we, the government, kind of got ourselves into this situation of putting a lot of great American brands and a lot of, Nissan. It's no secret Nissan's in big trouble. They're talking about they're looking at maybe getting acquired or partnering up with Honda. Stellantis, who owns Dodge, is in big trouble. So, there's going to be some serious discussions that, hey, The industry, we already got this. It's already been legislated. It's already through 2032. We need to help these guys out, and it's a program. It's already in place. The dealers are finally learning how to do it. It seems like this being able to administer it at the point of sale is really awesome. Great benefit for, and then another thing you and I talk a lot about, Tori, that I love is, it's no secret. EVs have had a lot of depreciation. Teslas in particular. Elon lowered the price on new. That squished, compressed, and really socked the depreciation to the used market when he lowered the prices on new. Hertz goes and offloads a bazillion Tesla rental cars back into the market. Legacy manufacturers are flooding the market with EVs. So we've seen a lot of depreciation in the EV market. This $7,500 and this $4,000 tax credit really help to create an equilibrium between the seller and the buyer of absorbing some of that depreciation that we've seen through a pretty wild ride of market values going from COVID, where things went through the roof, to here we are today in 2025.
Yep. And I'll end with just stating that, well, actually, let me read this comment from Joe, and then I'll make my last point here. Joe says it will inevitably go away. That's why I just ordered a Model 3, always wanted one. And between the Highland update and the tax credit, I finally pulled the trigger. So it won't go away overnight, but could it inevitably go away? Yeah, maybe it'll be a year. I've heard Elon even saying, it's not necessary. We don't have to do it. So it could go away. And, as much as we don't want it to.
Well, a lot of people think that it'll help Elon because he doesn't need it as bad as the other guys need it. So that's a rumor out there too. But who knows if that's what he thinks or if that's even accurate. But we do know Teslas have better margin than his competitors. So it could be favorable for him.
Could be, yeah. And so the last point here is just to make sure that our listeners know that we can process the tax credit. So EV Bids and Tesla Tips and Tricks have merged. And so EV Bids, that is our dealer name. We are a dealership in the United States. And so if you're in America, if you're in the US, we can check eligibility for you. We can check eligibility for the vehicle itself and let you know if it's good to go. And whether you have a private sale where you've already found the car that you want to buy, and you just need somebody to do the tax credit, we can help with that and process it and run it through our dealership for a small fee. And then for auctions, if you're wanting to sell your Tesla and it's less than $25,000 and eligible, we'll run it through our auction, and as a part of our auction, we'll process the tax credit for an eligible buyer if they're eligible. So go over to teslatipsandtricks.com, go to T3 auctions. You can see some auctions there. You can go to Sell My EV, and you can fill out the form to go ahead and list your car, or you can get the estimated value. Those are the two buttons on that Sell My EV page or Sell My Tesla page. And we look forward to working with you. We'd love to make it fun and easy and safe, safe and secure transaction. We ensure all of that with the T3 auction.
Yep. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun, Tori, as always. And thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode.